Golf Central on YouTube is brought to you by the new elite family of woods and irons from Callaway.
As the PGA Tour hits the mainland and the sprint to the year's first major properly begins, the General, Trip Isenhour, is here. And Trip, Nick Taylor and playoffs, I guess, that's becoming a thing?
It is indeed. And Jimmy, as we bid adieu to the Aloha State, we left there with two international winners and two impressive performances. Nick Taylor becoming the 11th international player to win the Sony Open. And you know what? Doing it in dramatic playoff fashion. And you know what? I'd say Nick Taylor and playoffs, they get along quite well.
Yeah, I think they definitely do. Well, at wai'alae, most of the day it was Stephen Jaeger and J.J. Spawn, but as you say, some late dramatics and everything changed. To the highlights we go. And here we are on 18, and this is the man of the day.
Yep, well, only one eagle so far at the 18th, but change that, Jimmy. We got two, and we get to maybe play a little more golf.
Nick Taylor. So it's going to be a playoff with Nico Echevarria. Taylor, tough one on the first playoff hole for birdie, about 10 feet.
He eats playoffs for breakfast, Jimmy. These are no sweat for him.
Echevarria now for his birdie to force a second playoff hole, and that's good.
Yeah, since October, not many players have played much better than that guy.
On the second playoff hole, Taylor hit his drive in the bunker, laid up short, and with it, Echevarria on the back. How about this? How good a shot is this?
Jimmy, this is incredible. You can't even describe how good that is. He had about a 2-foot area to land that in, and that's exactly what he did.
But Echevarria's eagle putt came up way short, so this the birdie.
Yeah, his mistake came at the first one, and you can't leave any room or door open for this guy right here, because he's going to walk right through it.
Door open, door shut. Taylor, a 65. And Taylor comes up with a bit of an unlikely win before hitting his second shot on the 72nd hole. Taylor was 2 shots off the lead and had about a 1 in 400 chance of winning. The Winnipeg native now has 5 career wins on the PGA Tour and has gotten used to winning in playoffs.
I think I enjoy being in those moments. I think for every reason my mind gets clear in those situations of the shot I'm just trying to hit. And it's kind of like a match play situation. I feel like I've always enjoyed match play when I was growing up and had success in that as well. And he's trying to hit each shot at hand. So, you know, I've worked on that the last couple of years of why those situations am I good and other situations where I'm not as consistent if I'm in 30th or something. But we'll work on that. But it was a nice start of the year, obviously.
Just how important the start of the year was based on how much, I don't want to use the word dismal, but I mean, it was a pretty bleak part of the second half of last year with a lot riding on it. Did that eat at you in the offseason, and were you at all determined?
Yeah, there was a lot of layers to that. There was, not making top 50, I knew would make the next year, just not where I wanted to be. Not making the President's Cup definitely hurt, but I felt like, my play, I had more myself to blame than not getting picked. I felt like I put Mike in a tough situation. And then on top of that, I've had to play more in the fall than I had originally planned and, away from family a few times and, put some work in the off season and was really wanting to be ready to go. Not that you're ever expecting necessarily to win right away out of the gates after some time off, but I knew I had my West Coast, because I was in the first 2 elevated events, or signature events, that my West Coast was going to be great. And a lot of golf courses that I've played well on and enjoy. So, again, to have this good of a start is awesome. It was a grind of a day. I didn't really look at the leaderboards till probably maybe 13 or 14, kind of had a sense of what was going on. And, when I missed the short putts on 15 and 16, I really thought I needed to get to 17. That's kind of my number I had to start the day. And, the chip on 18 was awesome. In that situation, I think all I was thinking was hole it, because I felt like par birdie wasn't going to change a whole lot with Nico having a really good birdie chance there. So, read it great and went in, and then the playoff to have those 2 nice up and downs to hang in there. Nico was hitting it great all day and knew that he really wasn't going to give it to me, and I was fortunate there that he missed that putt.
You know your post-round presser with a lay around your neck means life is good. Last 3 wins for Taylor, all come in extra holes. Of course, he authored one of the shots of the year in 23. This one, 4th playoff hole at the RBC Canadian Open, 72-foot eagle putt to stun Tommy Fleetwood. Becomes the first Canadian in 70 years almost to win his National Open. Applause from Mike Weir there. A year later in Phoenix, Taylor rallied from 3 down with 4 holes to play to force a playoff with Charlie Hoffman. He then beat him in the gloaming on the 2nd playoff hole with a birdie as the light was starting to disappear. And another late rally yesterday for Taylor. Looked like he was cooked when he flew it over the green on 18, but he chips in for eagle. Got some help from the leaders, as I mentioned before, in order to force a win via playoff. That gives him 3 consecutive years with a playoff victory. So Taylor is 3-0 in his career in playoffs. The headliner was that finish in his home nation 2 years ago. And he becomes just the 5th player to win playoffs in 3 consecutive years since 1998, joining a list of players that includes Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Ernie Els, and Bubba Watson. I guess that works. Trip, what a year for this guy. On the outside looking in on the President's Cup in Montreal, you heard him talk about that. Hadn't had an individual top 10 since that Phoenix win. Now he's going back to the Masters, and he's in all the signature events. Not exactly what I guess Bill Murray would call a Cinderella story, but it is one hell of a turnaround.
Well, yeah, it was, but the one thing you gotta look at Nick Taylor, and I think not being on the President's Cup, and he said it in his sound, you know, he put Mike in a bad position. He really did. Mike Weir, the captain. I'm sure Mike would have liked to had Nick Taylor on his team for reasons that why are you a good playoff player? Well, the reason why you're a good playoff player is you're a good match play player. And that's, I'm sure, would have been an asset for Mike Weir and the international team. But when you look at the big picture for Nick Taylor, you look at his career, you know, he won in 2015 right away at the Sanderson Farms, and he had a lull there for 5 years or so where he didn't win. Then he won at AT&T, and then another little bit of a lull. But now he's kind of hitting that stride. And really, when you start winning every single season, even if you have a down season by your standard, but doing it in the fashion that he's done it in playoffs, you absolutely got to put Nick as one of these guys that you would want on a short list at any match play event. So I don't care where he is next time on the international team. He's like a Kevin Kisner. He's a guy that's like a bulldog that has a sense for the moment and the ability to focus himself in that moment. And that's really the key. Is, you know, a lot of times we talk about it as players in the mental game all the time about how you got to be focused on shot for shot and where you are in the moment and getting into that moment, not letting anything about the past or the future distract you. And that's what Nick's able to do in playoffs. And you heard him, because it's something that we all seek. It's like the holy grail as a professional golfer. That's where we all want to be on a consistent basis. But sometimes it's playoffs that just hammer us and make us get into that mode that, hey, we're focused here. We got 1 or 2 players to beat whoever's in the playoff, and I got to go do it and focus my mind exactly where it needs to be in the moment. And I think that's what makes him so special. But again, you look at the last 3 years, the body of work, Nick Taylor is one of those guys that I think clearly one of the best Canadians going forward for the next 4 or 5 years.
I tell you what, it was pretty unlikely when he teed it up on Thursday. The odds of him winning this tournament, 110